Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Palace podcast, brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network, as you just heard from our lovely jingle. But today we have a special show, as it is the crossover special, as we have Ipswich on the weekend. So we have our special guest from the Ipswich channel. Tom, how are you doing? How's your week been going so far?
Yeah, well, really good, mate. We had a FA Cup action on Monday night, so we were able to sort of, sounds strange, to take a break from the league, which I'm pretty sure was the opposite for you in terms of not wanting to take a break from the league, how well it's going for you guys at the moment. And we had that kind of, throw form out the window kind of mentality heading into Monday's Cup game with Forest, and we almost got it done. But in what was our second penalty shootout of the season, we unfortunately came up short against, arguably the best team this season in terms of surprise packages and all that. So no shame in losing to Forest, very much so. Shame we couldn't get to the quarters. It's been a long time since we're even in the last 16, to be honest. But yeah, all good. Looking forward to getting back to the league. It's been a tough one, but I'm still enjoying the ride.
Oh, well, yeah, you're in the Premiership at least until the end of the season. So
yeah.
Enjoy it while it lasts, because we've been in that boat as well. Not for a while, but we've been in that boat as well. So which brings up one of the things we're going to talk about today will be sort of how we think, sort of our individual views of how the season's gone this year and things like that. Then we're going to have a kind of who's some of the star players or the sort of unsung heroes for the season. And then finally, as it is a review into the weekend fixture, we're going to give our score predictions and how we think the game is going to go. So let's start the ball rolling. So, Tom, we have to ask the question, how do you think the season's been going so far? I know it hasn't exactly been brilliant, but you are a promoted team, so it is kind of expected. It's going to be a tough one, essentially. But how have you sort of found the season so far? You are muted, Tom.
I apologise. Sorry about that. I'm here now. Sorry about that.
Don't worry, I've done it plenty of times. I think I did it yesterday. So
sorry about that. Yeah, no. As you were saying, that I think coming into this season, the last 2 years have been amazing. Like, two of the best years to support Ipswich Town. Like, I'm pretty sure for a neutral, it was great to watch as well. And the story of like our brilliant rise under McKenna in recent years. Coming to this season, we knew it was going to be a lot more difficult, and it's proven to be. I'm still, like I said at the top of the show, I'm still very much enjoying the ride. We have managed to see a few boos echoing around Portman Road after certain results this season against teams, we may have hoped to get someone against. But, it's still great. And, I've said many times, like this time 2 or 3 years ago, we were playing midweek games under the lights against Fleetwood. Do you know what I mean? So I think a lot of fans have to kind of realise where we are as a club right now. Even if we do go down this season, we're still very much in a good spot to potentially come back up as well. And yes, results haven't been what we've wanted, but we've put in some good performances there. I think 2025 has been a lot more difficult than what we found the first half of the season. But there's been good performances all round, I think, against sides. Really, I think we flourished more against sides we necessarily wouldn't have expected to get results against. So we've got 2 great draws against Aston Villa. Great opening day performance, I thought, against Liverpool. Win against Chelsea at home, and then away win at Spurs as well. But it's been the games against sides, like I said, we would have hoped to get something against. We've really struggled, and I think if we do go down, that's going to be the reason. We said at the start of the season that we needed to make Portman Road a fortress, as it has been, even in our dire years, it kind of was that, to be honest. But this season, it just hasn't been that. And, games at home against the likes of Everton, most recently, which was so heartbreaking, Southampton. At that point of the season, you guys, when, before you found your feet, I think at that point of the season, it was seen as a potential relegation battle, but you guys kind of eventually found your feet and managed to soldier on there. But at that point, that was very much, again, we saw as we could get something, and we didn't. And that's, I think, really could do us over. But I'm still very much enjoying it. Premier League football is great to see. I remember when I was much younger, we were in the Premier League, and our first season back was incredible, and our second season was not. But, I'd much rather be where we are now, and I'm still very much enjoying it and looking forward to this week's game and the few ahead before we may go back down to the second tier. But you never know. Wolves may slip up. We've still got to play them.
Yeah, well, that kind of half leads me into my next question. With basically the home straight of the season, the last 10, 11 games, depending on schedule, do you believe or do you think you can still survive? Because it is only 5 points. So it is still doable, but I had a look at your run. It's going to be interesting. You've got to kind of get safe by April-ish before you kind of start running into sort of the top 6. Because I was looking at our one. We've got 5 of them almost back-to-back or within sort of 2 or 3 weeks of each other. So, yeah, do you think you can stay up? Or is it going to be kind of going to the last minute?
Yeah, I still believe we can. Like, it's ridiculous at this point to not believe it. Yes, the gap has increased. We said on a recent podcast that if it does grow ever more than this, then it may be difficult. I think, and it's not a huge flag to sort of raise and wave around, but I think we have been the best out of the 3 promoted sides this season in terms of quality on the pitch. Southampton, yes, they did get a result against us, but the majority have been pretty dire. Leicester's off-field antics have very much impacted them on the pitch. I think we have a very cohesive backroom staff, and the players are very happy to play for the badge and stuff. And I think we could. We've got a result against Wolves earlier this season. There's no reason to say we can't do it again. Mateus Cunha's out for 3 games. I know one man doesn't make a team, but that is quite massive because I did kind of think if he does leave in January, where he was linked to Forest and I think Arsenal as well, that may have helped us out greatly. He's out for 3 games. His first game back is actually against us in 4 games' time, which he'll probably be quite motivated to do. But you never know. In the last 2 seasons, we've got back-to-back promotions at finishing second place in League One and the Championship. At this point, or maybe a few weeks prior, we weren't in those positions. We were about 5 points, 6 points behind in both those scenarios. And yes, obviously, we were playing much better football in those leagues, but we still had to rely on teams above us to slip up, and they did. So that's something that I'm still very much hoping will be the case. But you never know. You never know. I'm enjoying it whilst we can. I will say, I'm not saying this too much. If we do go down, and I hope we don't, we've got quite a good team for next season. I think bar Liam Delap and maybe a couple of other guys, most of the squad's still going to be there. And it's a very good team. We beat Coventry in the FA Cup, who were on a fantastic run in the Championship, 8 wins out of our last 9. We spanked them with our second team, 4-1. So most of those guys will be down at the Championship if we do go down. So that'd be quite interesting to see. But hopefully it doesn't come to that and we can get a few more results and Wolves can slip up and we can have another year in the Premier League.
I kind of want you guys to stay up. I like Ipswich, so it's always been one of those.
Everyone seems to say that.
Everybody loves Ipswich. You have no ill will against you. It's well, very little anyway, one way or the other. Leicester has kind of annoyed some people left, right, and centre. Nobody really likes Everton, so things like that. So, is there any questions you want to ask me, sort of about Palace season, or any other sort of questions you want to ask?
When did you as I said, when we played you guys? Yeah, when we played you guys at the start, I think it was like November, December time. Like I said, at that point of the season,
end of November, something like that.
Yeah. At that point of the season, as I said, no offense to where you guys are now, but it did seem like on paper potential relegation scrap because it was quite a poor start from you guys. What's been the switch? Because obviously, you had a good second half of the season last year. It seems it's definitely the case again now. When was the switch? Why has there been a switch, and what's the reason for that, do you think?
We don't know, actually. We've been kind of asking this question for the last few months of why it suddenly switched on. I think it's just sort of more the teams kind of come together, the system is starting to work. Sort of some of the players that weren't having the best form have been kind of slightly rotated out. It also helps that Mateta started scoring on a regular basis. It also kind of helped that Eze didn't try and take the entire team on by himself. Because one of many of my gripes at the beginning of the season was Eze trying to score a worldie all the time. He'd get to the 30 yards out or something like that, the 18-yard box, and just shoot. He's got 3 or 4 other players to pass to. He decides to shoot instead, gives the ball back, and then we're in the same problem. And kind of at the beginning of the season, we were, kind of making a lot of unforced errors. So we weren't getting beaten by teams, but we were sort of conceding losing one goal here, one goal there. But there were points where, so I think Liverpool was one of the key ones where we could have been 4 or 5-0 down by sort of in the first 20 minutes by just Jota by himself. He was so open, and for some reason he just got lucky. Man United could have done it to us, but it was an unbelievable performance by both keepers to keep them in. So to a point, I have no idea why we're now on a sort of this insane run, because we've been trying to figure it out on the podcast for the last few months. It kind of helps that we've had a really good away form. is, I think, one of the best in the league at the moment. But our home form is absolutely dreadful in comparison. So, which we don't understand either, because it's the same team, same formation, same everything. But for some reason at Selhurst Park, it's just open season. So to answer your question, I don't rightly know. It's just suddenly switched on.
It's a good problem to have, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a brilliant problem to have. I don't know.
Yeah. Very jealous of that problem, that's for sure. Yeah, I think home-wise, again, not to equate us to you guys in terms of points and stuff, but we found it much more difficult at home this season. We've our best results and performances have definitely been on the road this season. So you've given me a slight bit of hope heading into the weekend, just from what you said there.
Oh yeah, I the same thing when I was talking to Fulham. They were very much like, "Oh yeah, cheers, you're at home, so yeah, we're gonna fill them with confidence." Is there anything else before we move on? I think
maybe just quick thoughts on the manager, if that's one. I think Glasner was, he's kind of unknown quantity, I think, to a lot of casual football fans. Like, just thoughts on him as a boss, and was there ever a point of the season, again, like I said, with that poor start, where you thought his name could have been on the chopping block? Because usually around that winter period is where managers could go, isn't it?
Oh, there definitely was a point where there was a lot of murmurs that he had about 2 or 3 games in to get a result, but the board stuck with him because I think at the time there wasn't a lot of options. So because at Palace's level, we're not pushing for any titles. It's very much trying to get into mid-table is our main priority. So you're not going to attract sort of the likes of sort of world-class managers or even things like that. I think at one point Gareth Southgate was considered, mainly because, well, he's an ex-Palace player and he just got off the England job, which was still fairly successful, even though he played, you would say, relatively boring football, but he got results. So he was kind of in the talking point. But there were points where you were kind of thinking, we might need to change manager, but I'm very glad that they didn't pull the trigger, because I'm very much of you need to give these managers time. You can't just keep swapping and changing, because it takes probably about 3 or 4 months for them to get their system in. Just look at Man United. They got rid of one manager, bring in a new one, and the problem hasn't changed in the slightest. So sacking your manager is not always the best option, but all of these sort of guys think it's just a quick fix, quick plaster, quick band-aid to any problem. But so I'm glad that we stuck with Glasner. As a manager, I'm sort of really impressed with the way he kind of motivates the team as well. So he'll get the best out of what you would probably consider fairly average players. We don't have sort of any sort of world beaters or anything. They are top quality players, and they know exactly what they're supposed to be doing and when. It may have taken a while for the system to get going, but they know what they're doing. So I'm just glad we've kept him for a while. He knows how to win a trophy. So him being out the first team for every single cup game is also encouraging. Instead of trying to put out reserve team to the rest and he's actually going for it. So I'm all for Glasner at the moment, but that can all change very quickly, as it is football. Is there anything else, or should we move on?
I think it's all good, mate.
That's all good for the moment. Okay, and on that, we're going to take a quick break and thank our sponsor here. And after the quick break, we shall then start talking about some of the star players of the season. Right, so don't go anywhere.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bionic, the world's most personalised supplements. Bionic provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bionic. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now. Your body is unique.
It started playing the thing again. It did that yesterday too. I did have to keep an eye on that, I think. But we are back. This is a Daily Palace podcast. This is the crossover special with Tom from Daily Ipswich team. So next on the agenda, we're going to sort of kind of sing the praises of some of our star players of the season, or even sort of give a shout out to some of these unsung players. So start with, as you are the guest, Tom, do you want to give your list of some of the star players or anybody you want to give a sort of a shout out to or praise that's not been given it so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's no surprise. The first name I'm going to mention is Liam Delap. We signed a plethora of players this summer. I think that, when you move up a league, it's kind of expected now, especially when we're not a team that's been in the Premier League for a long time. So I think we obviously were the most busy coming into the new season. That was to be expected. And I'll be honest, signing him coming into the season, we needed a striker. I'm a big fan of George Hurst, but we needed another striker to be there for him as well. Coming into it, I wasn't like, oh my God, we've got like this world beater or this potential world beater and this young English striker now, because he didn't really set the championship that far alight. Obviously, coming from City's academy, there must be a good player in there or a potentially good player in there. But he's just been fantastic. I think it's not just his goal scoring that, he's provided, without him, who knows where we'd be this season. It's not just his goal scoring that really, really impresses me. It's his pace and it's his strength and it's his physicality. I think that's one of the things he gets praised for mostly, is that he's really sort of brutish on the ball and loves a good run. Like if he picks the ball around the halfway line, a bit of open space, he's going to charge at those centre-backs when they're backtracking. And a lot of goals have come from that this season, or chances have come from that this season. And it's just been really great to have a striker like that who, like I said at the top of the show, if things don't go well for us this season, I don't really expect him to be with us next year, because he's on double digits this season. He's been one of the top strikers in the league this season, a potential replacement for Harry Kane in 4 or 5 years' time if we're looking that far ahead, because I think most other English strikers nowadays, if you look after Kane, you've got the likes of Watkins and a few other guys like that. They're approaching 30 now. Delap's very much not in that bracket. So I think if you're looking for a successor to potentially be at the Euros in the UK in a few years' time, could very much be that guy. I'll be proud of him wherever he goes, to be honest, unless Norwich go up and he ends up joining them or something. But apart from that, that would be great to see. And he's just been brilliant. I think it's been a breath of fresh air having a really quality striker and one you can be dependent upon. The only issue is with him is that we've had to depend on him so much. The goals haven't really come from anywhere else apart from a few scattered here and there. I think in terms of, again, he was obviously the first name to mention. I'm pretty sure if I was to ask you, he'd probably be the first name as well. I think in terms of other names who've been standout, it has been few and far between, unfortunately. I think for me, if we look at defensively, one name who I really was not expecting much of this season, who's been there the past year or so, is one of the few players we have with a bit of Premier League experience coming into this season, which was Axel Tuanzebe. United's academy before, was at Villa for their promotion campaign, was with us for a bit last season as well, came in, I think, half through the season. Didn't really set the world alight, though, in the championship for us, and was kind of one of those players you just kind of thought it's good to have on the team sheet, but never really hoping he's in the team. He's unfortunately injured. He picked up an injury against Forest in the Cup in the week, so you won't have to worry about him on the weekend. But just such a reliable hand, and he's shown this season to me, especially, that you can have all these great young players and these championship stars that we brought in a lot of this past year, but just someone who's level-headed and confident. I think he's shown that through his quality. He unfortunately gets injured way too much, and I think that has kind of scuppered him a bit this year. But he's been great. He's really, really been fantastic. They've definitely been the two best for us this season, I think, for sure. I think in terms of unsung heroes, difficult, because, as I said, it's not been the greatest of seasons, unfortunately. I think there's one player who I'm a big fan of, who hasn't necessarily been given much of a chance, but is very much still a big sort of favourite amongst the fan base. You probably won't be that too familiar with him. It's Nathan Broadhead. He was a big player for us in the Championship, scored quite a few important goals, but hasn't really got much of a chance in the Premier League this season, unfortunately. There was talks of him maybe of having a falling out with the staff earlier in the season. The few games he started and come off the bench, I just think he's really confident. He's played internationally for Wales. I know Wales aren't in that Gareth Bale, Aaron Ramsey era when they were really good 10 or so years ago, but he's still a quality proven player in my opinion. And he'll very much be there for many years, I believe. And it's just a shame he hasn't been given much of a chance. But unsung hero doesn't usually is the case that they haven't been able to perform as best as you'd like to think they could. And that very much has been the case with Broadhead this season. So they're the three for me, I think, this season. We'll get onto Palace in a sec, but, from an outsider's perspective, I assume Liam Delap is your man in terms of looking at someone who's been a standout for Town this season. It has unfortunately been slim pickings, hasn't
it? Yeah, because I was going to sort of say Delap as one of your star guys, because I think the first time I ever heard on him was the Football Manager game, going through the Man City Academy was the first time I ever heard of him. And it's like, oh, okay, this guy could actually do something. So, and I think when we were doing the Palace Ipswich like pre-game thing, I think I probably brought him up as well as probably the main threat. Because you're not exactly filled with a lot of talent. A lot of you guys, you're going about your business well and things like that. It's just none of them are particularly standing out all that much, especially from an outsider. But yeah, on the Palace side, besides from the usual Mateta, Gahey and Eze kind of thing, the ones that everybody knows, I think some of the sort of star players for me at the moment anyway, has got to be Will Hughes. He's been, since the Man City game, he's just turned it on. I don't know where he's suddenly become an actual playmaker instead of just this bruiser in midfield. He's starting to sort of show a bit of leadership in the midfield as well. A really sort of good mentor for Wharton and probably Devaney, who I'm expecting to do fairly well once he probably gets a little bit more of a shot in the first team. Also, a good shout out. You have to shout out to the goalie. You've got to give him every once in a while. Dean Henderson has kept us in so many games. He has done some absolutely phenomenal saves. I think even one against you guys in Ipswich where he caught it between his legs on the goal line. So he's done that so many times this season. So, and goalies don't get much of a shout out. They get blamed if things go wrong and then get ignored if they get a clean sheet. So they're only heroes when it's a penalty shootout. So you've got to give it to the goalie every now and again. Appreciate your goalies. That's all I say. Just remember they're there. But you've also got the likes of Muñez has kind of started to grow into a real threat down that right wing as well, especially getting some of the goals. But yeah, I think largely that's what I said. Most of the rest of the team have, yet again, they've been solid once they've started to sort of settle in. Lacroix's been pretty solid. He's been also a bit of a driving force in the team. He's always getting the crowd going, especially at the end of the game. He'll go and sort of start sort of chanting with them and start sort of signing autographs, etc., etc. But those probably be my sort of stars and unsung heroes. Is there anything else you want to ask me, Tom, before we move on?
Yeah. I mean, just obviously you mentioned Mateta there, and I think obviously he got a goal against us earlier in the season, and is very much, I think, one of the most standout players up front in the Premier League this season for sure. In doing that, has very much kept one of your biggest signings on the bench, hasn't he, in the form of Eddie Nketiah? Like, he obviously left the Emirates to be more of a difference maker, and there's another striker who's managing to be fantastic and keep him on the bench. Like, is that a good problem to have though, having Premier League proven striker on the bench as well? And how has he fared and how has he viewed amongst Palace fans? Because is he happy in the position he's in as well, do you think?
Probably not sure if he's happy, because he probably came in thinking he would be either a strike partner with Mateta or kind of playing off that attacking central midfield role, being sort of link up with Eze. But it hasn't clicked for him, at least for a while. It's started to now. We've got one in the FA Cup and he got his first league goal against Villa just before it as well. So he's starting to come along, but it's more the thing of we paid quite a bit for him and he needs to start performing, because he could start to be considered essentially be considered a dud for the price we paid for him and the reputation he came with from Arsenal, being this tricky winger, sort of very sort of technically gifted player, and it just doesn't seem to be clicking for him. But yet again, as I said, with the manager, these guys do need time to sort of settle into a team and things like that. So if he's not doing that next season, then I think we start having an issue. You get one season leeway, essentially. So if he's not performing next season, then I think he'll probably be either loaned out, probably to the Championship, which I don't think he wants to do, or we'll try and move him on and probably lose a bit on him. But yeah, it's just one of those weird situations. It's nice to have a guy with that experience, but if you're not doing it, then we are going to look somewhere else. And while Mateta may not be around for probably a week or so, through for sort of concussion protocol, this might be his opportunity to try and get something. So we'll just kind of have to, yet again, wait and see. Hopefully he does start performing, or at least trying to get some assists and start to get, say, half an hour or so under his belt instead of playing the last 10 minutes, just sort of when Mateta's sort of just to keep him fit. So if he can get some actual game time, I think he'll be fine. But it's definitely getting that. Is there anything else? Or should we move on to the last section?
I've got one more as well, just in terms of, because I think in recent years, you guys have really, some superstars have really emerged in that team. You saw the sale of Elise last season. And I think, we saw last summer the amount of guys you had in the England team with like Walton, Gahey. There's another one. It escaped me. Eze, sorry. And, Eze,
come on, you can't.
I think, yeah, I apologise. But do you see, because obviously the Elise sale did kind of feel a bit inevitable last summer. Are you guys at a point now where you're kind of expecting, I think Gahey and Eze potentially, but in doing so, yes, you're going to bring in some money and get some sales through that. But in doing so, you're weakening your team very much. So it's going to be, I think, could be a hard area to be in terms of like not becoming a selling club, and then just, yes, they've given you some great years, but you lose those, it's going to be very, very difficult in replacing them, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. But this is the nature of football. Whenever a good player comes out of one of these middle teams, the top six is going to come knocking. It's the problem. You're probably going to have the same situation sort of in the next couple of months as well, of your star players are going to get picked up by some of the middle teams and things like that. But we have the problem of they're going to bigger clubs, which they really can't say no to. So Gahey, I do expect to go in the summer. Be that to Newcastle, I don't expect so. Chelsea, probably, but it might be probably a bit more likely. Eze,
buying back all their young players, aren't they?
Yeah, well, that's what they do. They've got them for a while and then they'll flog them off later. But yeah, Eze, I expect probably the same thing. I think there seems to be some kind of verbal agreement that if Spurs or somebody comes knocking, that they are going to at least consider it. But where Spurs are in the table now, I think that would be a downgrade. So I think if somebody like sort of City or Arsenal come knocking, I think might be a little bit more sort of favourable for Eze. But we're always going to lose players. It's one of the things of being really good at finding championship talent, which we have a sort of quite a good reputation for. So they get their chance in the Premiership at a middle club where there's less pressure, so they're not going to get potential relegation, or maybe in the case of Palace. So they get to show off their talent, and then they get picked up by sort of the top six. It's just the way it is. I really, really hope we can keep them, but my head says we are probably going to lose at least one of them. Probably Gahey more than Eze, but I'm definitely expecting to lose at least one of them. I think we can move on unless there's anything else. No? Okay, right. We'll take a quick break to thank our provider here at Zencastr, and then we'll get to the main event. We're going to give our score predictions and how we think the game is going to go. Right, so just hang on just 1 second. We'll be right back. Here at Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the description below to find out more about Zencastr. And we are back with the Daily Palace podcast, the crossover special with Ipswich. We are still here with Tom, and we are now going to get to the main event. The reason we are here, the score predictions, and how we think the game is going to go. So, as a guest, Tom, I think you should go first. So, score prediction, what do you think it's going to be?
Yeah, I mean, whenever I do these predictions, especially this season, it's kind of been a head and heart scenario for me. Just seeing how the season's gone for me. I think it's going to be a difficult game. Every game has been very difficult this season. We're getting to the point now where, especially with any point is a plus. We've had a really poor 2025. Looking at the form table from January 1st, we are 20th with 2 points. You guys are third with 16 points, level with City. So it is a big gulf in class in terms of form, that's for sure. But as I said, I expect the performance to be there. I think predominantly with the exception of some shaky games against Liverpool and City a month or so ago, I think we've kind of put our best foot forward, especially away from home. I think we've looked a lot better. The only area for me, I think, really that's sort of reared its head, unfortunately, in the past week defensively is from set pieces and crosses. You might notice that in this game because we conceded 3 set pieces in that game against United a week or so ago, and we really should have got something considering we went down to 10 men and we took the lead and we were 2-2 going into the game. Anyway, less we said about that game, the better, to be honest. So we will definitely concede. Like we do. We barely kept any clean sheets this season. We brought in Alex Palmer from West Brom after the Muric experiment dramatically failed and our other keeper, Walton, went injured. So I do expect us to concede a goal. I'll be happy with 1-1. I think that's the best you can go for. I think it's hard really to predict a win outside of facing either Everton or Wolves become near the end of the season now. Or Leicester and Wolves, sorry, I should say. Because, we've unfortunately shown we can't hang with many of the top sides of the season. And like as I said, January onwards this season, you have been one of the best teams. So you've got to give you respect there. And expecting a win against an opposition like this really shouldn't really be that. I mean, obviously, it is not great in terms of what happened to him, but with Mateta, most likely said under concussion protocol, I don't expect to see him this weekend. Maybe he'll be wearing a mask and he does. But after that horrible tackle, or foul, I should say, from the Millwall goalkeeper last week, having your main man up front out of action, I think hopefully may fill us with a bit more confidence defensively. But I'll say 1-1. Just, I've still got to be confident. I said at the top of the show, we've got to pick up points somewhere. There's 10 games left now, I believe, after this weekend, or 9 or something. And we've got to get them somehow.
I think it's 10 or 11, depending on the schedule. Yeah, something like that left. So, you need all the points you can get at the minute.
Exactly. So, here's hoping for a point and a Wolves slip up with whoever they're playing, which I believe may be Everton. Yeah, as you said, you're not as good at home and we're slightly good away. So hopefully that'll help as well. Where are you at predictions-wise? I think you should be fairly confident.
Well, I'm fairly confident, especially as we've got one of the best form in the league at the moment. But on the other hand, home form is absolutely atrocious. We've won the last couple of games, one being Villa, which I don't know how we won 4-1. I really don't. I'm absolutely flabbergasted by that one. And Millwall, it's an FA Cup game against a slightly lesser league team, so we were expected to win that one. Obviously weren't expecting the events of that game, but we've talked about that one enough on this podcast. We'll probably do it a little bit more. But I'm fairly confident. I'm thinking something like 2-1 win for Palace. We're not the greatest when it comes to defence. We do tend to give up goals. We've had a few clean sheets, but that was mainly sort of January and sort of end of December. We had a good few clean sheets. So we might be able to keep one, but I'm always going to think we're going to concede at least one. I think it will be a very slow start from Palace. We generally don't come out the blocks full throttle. I would expect the goals to be sort of second half, probably the 50th minute on. I expect sort of, be in front on the counter, something like that, or sort of a nice build-up play, but it's not going to be all guns blazing. It's just going to be relatively methodical in the first half, make you wear yourself down, and then we'll suddenly switch it on in the second half, and it'll be a completely different team. So I think that's probably how it's going to go, and that will be my score prediction of sort of a 2-1. Not overly comfortable, but we should do all right for this.
You should.
Palace at home, so anything can happen, especially if you watch that Everton game a couple of weeks ago. Oh my God, that was one of the worst Palace performances I've seen in a while. So, anything can happen at Selhurst Park. So, on that, I think we will wrap it up there. Thank you, Tom, for coming on for this conversation, a crossover event. These are always fun. I love doing these. It's fun getting to know some of you guys.
They're great.
And on that, just if you've gone this far, please give us a like on YouTube, 5 stars on Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.